G'day guys and welcome to Raging Rhino. I'm sure by now you've heard the news coming out of Lucasfilm that Dave Filoni's been promoted to the Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. Now, I'm sure a lot of you that have been watching my channel for a long time know my views already on Dave Filoni and that I think he's a disloyal hack and that he's been very disloyal to George Lucas's Star Wars in nearly everything, if not everything that he's actually done. So I just wanted to go through this with you guys and give you my thoughts on what's actually happening with Lucasfilm, with Star Wars moving forward with this news that we've gotten. So Dave Filoni has been promoted to Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. He will work directly with Kathleen Kennedy to oversee all Star Wars projects going forward. And of course, there is a little quote here that I just wanted to read to you guys. In this new role, when we're planning the future of what we're doing now with Star Wars, I'm involved at the inception phase. Now, a lot of people out there, this is another thing that's actually sort of split the fan base again a little bit in regards to the fact that there's a lot of people out there that do trust Dave Filoni and think that he is being faithful to George Lucas. And there's a lot of people out there that actually think that he is a disaster for Star Wars moving forward. And I think the evidence of that was with the Ahsoka series. That was definitely something that just fell off a cliff. Nobody's really interested in Star Wars anymore. But this has been going on for a lot longer than just the Ahsoka series. And I want to put the question out to you guys. Why is it, especially the ones that actually have faith in Dave Filoni, why is it that you think that Dave Filoni is being loyal to George Lucas? And what has he done for you to think that he's actually going to do something good for Star Wars? And I just want to give my views on what I think that Dave Filoni has done with Star Wars since he's been sort of in this more creative role, I guess. I mean, obviously he had some creative control over the Clone Wars series, which that series alone does a little bit of damage to George Lucas's Star Wars, but I will say it's not as bad as what he's done moving forward. So we've had Clone Wars Season 7, we've had The Bad Batch, and we've also had Tales of the Jedi. Those are the animated things that he's done. Now, out of the Clone Wars stuff, I have my problems with the 6 seasons that he did, but then, of course, going into the 7th season and making Ahsoka so important to the universe and making her so powerful in that as well, I have my issues with that, especially with also, too, what he did with Maul in that series. But also, too, like you look at The Bad Batch, for example, and he's now brought cloning in. I feel like they're trying to use a lot of the cloning stuff that they've brought into that series, and of course with The Mandalorian as well, to try and justify some of the sequel trilogy. But you've got Omega, and now you've got, at the end of Season 2, you've got another female clone of Jango Fett. Now, I know that there's no issue in regards to having female characters. We've never had those issues before, but when you've got a clone of a male character that then somehow we've got 2 clones that are now females from those genes, it just doesn't add up to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. So there's that. Then with Tales of the Jedi, we got told that when they decanonized the EU that they were going to keep canon, really like have this continuity of the timeline and it'd be very consistent from the books, the comics, all of that sort of thing. With Tales of the Jedi, there are massive retcons from that, not just with the Ahsoka stuff, with the Ahsoka novel. There is definitely that there. But then there's also with Count Dooku and how he essentially was manipulated by Palpatine and all of that sort of thing from the Plagueis novel. Now, I don't know whether or not the Plagueis novel is still supposed to be canon or not anymore because, of course, they decanonized the EU and that is a part of the expanded universe, but it fits so well in the story basically between or going into the Phantom Menace. So I don't really know what's sort of going on there with that, but he definitely had retcons in there in Tales of the Jedi. Then you look at the live action stuff that he's been a part of. He's been a part of The Mandalorian, all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, and if you look at that final season of The Mandalorian, an absolute disaster with that. But he created things like tracking fobs that haven't been explained. He's created basically hyperspace skipping. They even made the meme of stormtroopers shooting a can and they can't shoot for shit. They're inaccurate, especially after we've had the line from George Lucas's Star Wars that only Imperial stormtroopers could be that precise. And I know the meme comes from when they were escaping the Death Star and, you know, everybody wants to talk about how shit the stormtroopers were, but it was actually a planned thing. When you actually watch the movie and you see the story, Vader and Tarkin basically set up a tracking device on the ship, allowed it to escape so that they could find the rebellion. So that's why they weren't shooting them and killing them. They were essentially under orders not to and actually to let them go. So the whole fact that they brought that in as a meme, Grogu force healing, of course, tying it into the sequels with that, but the justification for that was that Kylo and Rey were a dyad, and that's why they were able to do that. So how can Grogu do it when we haven't got an explanation of, is he even a dyad? Like, and who, if he is, who's that with? Then you've got things like the Book of Boba Fett, which was an absolute disaster in itself. I will go back to The Mandalorian just really quickly here and say you had Luke Skywalker, who didn't act like a Jedi in that entire scene that he had at the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. But then going into the Book of Boba Fett, you've got, again, Luke Skywalker being an absolute moron and not really being the Luke Skywalker that he should be. And especially after the lessons that he learned about attachments, he still is under that same premise of what the Jedi Order had their issues with in the first place. So he still has that problem. But, you know, then you've got the Ahsoka scenes and all of that sort of thing in the Book of Boba Fett. And he was so involved in that, you know, like a Bantha and all the stuff in regards to destroying the Tuskens and making them something that they're not. You've got the mods and the mod shop and all of that sort of garbage that came into that. Now, I don't know what his involvement was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I don't think that there was too much involvement in that or in the Andor show. But then moving into the Ahsoka series, that show was an absolute disaster. The ratings were horrible, number one, but the actual show, the writing, the storytelling, the law breaking. You've got Sabine being stabbed by a lightsaber and then being left with nothing but a flesh wound. All of these things have been Dave Filoni. So I'm curious, and I want to ask the question again. What has Dave Filoni done to give you faith that he is being loyal to George Lucas and that he can actually do something good with Star Wars? The fact that he's going to be working side by side with Kathleen Kennedy doesn't give me any hope. But also, too, like, people are saying, oh, he's going to be given more control, he's going to be given more power now to be able to tell the stories that he wants to tell. Are you trying to tell me that he didn't have that kind of control and that kind of power over the Ahsoka show? That it was meddled with? Because I can't believe that for a second. So that's where my issue really comes down to with this. Everything that Dave Filoni's done, he talks about being loyal to George Lucas, but the words don't apply to the action. The action that he's taking goes against those words, that he's actually being disloyal to George Lucas. So again, if anyone is actually excited for this news and excited to see Dave Filoni being this new chief creative officer at Lucasfilm, please explain to me why. What has he actually done to give you confidence that he can actually tell a good Star Wars story? I'm not saying that the guy doesn't know Star Wars. I'm actually saying that he's actually a bit of a sellout more than anything else. The guy could probably actually tell a good story. Well, I'm yet to see it, and that's my entire point. He should be telling good Star Wars stories based on what we understand his knowledge of Star Wars to be. But yet we're not getting any of that in anything that he's done since being a part of Star Wars, being a part of Lucasfilm, including, for me, the Clone Wars. So, again, I'm putting the question out to you guys. Why is this good news? Why is this so exciting for so many people out there? And I will say that those so many people out there are probably now the minority. From what I'm seeing on Twitter, on a lot of the live streams that I've seen people talking about this and the comments that I'm seeing in the chats and all of that sort of thing, I think there's a lot more people that are actually thinking, well, this ain't going to change anything. I mean, I already thought that he had complete control over the Ahsoka show. I already thought that he had complete control over what he was doing with The Mandalorian, and he was the person that Jon Favreau was going to for, can we do this or can't we do this? And yet there's just destruction on the table. So Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think about this announcement? Do you think that this is a good thing? Do you think that this is honestly going to save Star Wars? And if you do think that Dave Filoni is the right person, I want to know from you, what has he done to give you the confidence to even say that? Let me know in the comments. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.